Good evening, everyone. At this time, I'll call to order the regularly scheduled committee meeting for the Village of Midlothian, February 20th, 2019 at 7 p.m. Roll call, please.
Trustee Cagney?
Here.
Trustee Crowley?
Here.
Trustee Gillis? Here. Trustee Ivan?
Here.
Trustee Killelea? Trustee Kreis?
Here.
Mayor LaRue?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, I'll open the floor to public comment. If you'd like to be named a matter of public record, please stand, state your name and address. Yes, sir.
Alan Krogowski, 15026 Kenton, right here in York. Here for the same reason I've been here for the last year and a half, trying to get some information where we're going with zoning. Nick, I did get the letter, thank you very much, regarding the property on Kedzie, saying that it's legal non-conforming. Unfortunately, it doesn't help their situation because it doesn't say that it can be rebuilt if it would be destroyed. And I'm just wondering what kind of relief is in the plans. And I'm not really hearing from anybody what is going to be able to be done. So if I can hear anything from anybody, that'd be great. But I don't hear much of anything.
The last we talked, we agreed to give you a letter of legal non-conforming, and we are looking at all the zoning in the whole town.
Any idea on a timeline so I can tell these people when they can sell their house?
They can sell it. We're not holding them up for selling the house.
Well, you are.
The bank is.
Well, you are. I mean,
We gave them a letter.
It doesn't help the financing.
I know that's the bank's reasoning, not the village's reasoning. Those properties have been zoned commercial since 1968. Their first map showed them zoned commercial, so I don't know. They were built probably before zoning that came out. I don't know when they were built. I think Trustee Gillis said maybe 50s, but our first zoning maps were in the 60s, and they show all those properties commercial.
So everything was always commercial.
On Kedzie.
So I guess the question would be, what's the plan for the future? Is it going to be able to be residential or?
I just reached out to a couple, one intern who's going to get another intern, and he's going to work with Superintendent Weiner and Trustee Cagney to look at our zoning across the map, the whole village, and bring recommendations to the board for rezoning. So we can't give you a time frame though. That's my problem.
The zoning map that we currently have needs to be adopted by the end of March. So our first order of business is to adopt that map. But in the meantime, we're taking a look at the whole entire map to see if there's any further corrections that need to be made. So we're going to be looking at the whole entire village all over again. And the Kedzie Avenue properties will be reviewed as well. But as the mayor stated, they've always been, I mean, since the 1960s, they've been commercial properties. So
Then how did he buy it residential?
I have no idea.
As the attorney had said before, the bank is making that decision.
Right.
The village gave a letter that it's legal and it's not conforming, but it's legal. And
Right. If the property owner bought that property 30 or 40 years ago and he got a mortgage on it, the only thing I can think of is that the bank at the time,
But he didn't. He bought it like in 5 or 6.
2005 or 2006, then whoever gave him the mortgage didn't pay attention to the zoning and just went ahead and gave him a mortgage on it. So
So I guess my question would eventually be here. How do I stay in tune with what's being done? Because I do have my property on Knox that's also
right,
affected.
and that's also going to be when we start looking at all this, we're going to be taking a look at those Knox Avenue properties as well.
And how do I know what's being said and done so I can stay ahead of it? I don't want to end up on the backside of it again like I do now.
Right. Well, you can come to meetings. You can give Nick Weiner or I a call.
Well, I've emailed you.
And I do apologize. You did email me, and I did forget to return your email, so I do apologize for that. But this definitely is an issue that the board is taking up and is going to get resolved in the next year, because we do have some zoning issues for some of the properties in town, and we know that we have to get it resolved.
All right. So I guess I don't know what to tell my cousin. It sounds like somehow it got purchased as a single family and somebody did single family financing.
On a commercial property.
All right, I'll let him know.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No? Okay. I will close the floor to public comment, move on to trustee business, trustee Grace.
The first item, I do have a couple other things that have come up and I'd like to discuss. But the first item is, I want to update the board on a meeting that I had on February 7th with the potential developer of the Honda property. He has been in the process of hopefully obtaining a judicial deed through a tax purchase. And I had said to him, had we known about this 2 years ago, we probably could have went through the abandonment process through the South Suburban Land Bank and Development Authority much quicker and had a judicial deed by now. But what he did tell me, so I know that he's got the right attorney. Mark Miller had told me on all of their no-cash bids, they used Rodney Slutsky. I don't know Attorney Valdez, if you know him. I think he's pretty esteemed on these type of situations, and that's his attorney. So after he told me who his attorney was, and he's working through some of the issues on this property, I felt confident. But just to give you, I think he's the real deal. I want to show you some pictures. These are in Chicago Ridge. He purchased this property in Chicago Ridge before pictures, okay? Pretty bad. And right now, you can see what he's doing.
Karen,
Okay?
is this the same gentleman who came here and said he was interested in buying it and presented those pictures, or is this a different
Same
gentleman?
person, but it's getting closer. And he reached out to me. He left a message in the building department for me. And actually, the day he was here, I was with him over 2 hours, and I didn't introduce him to Superintendent Weiner and to Chief Hotwagner. So this is his vision. Again, pretty much what everybody's seen. He said he wanted to have a really quality development, 4 separate facades, but he said that some of those could be on the inside, one business, depending on the end user.
Was he still intending on building an apartment on the roof?
He is, in the back. And that's for tax purposes, mixed use. So, I did a lot of behind-the-scenes work before the meeting, and he came in with his plan, and he owns all of these pins in the back, and he owns the property to the south of the
Purple Doctor's
the Purple
office?
Doctor's office, which he said to me, I know that's going to be a problem because the post office won't have parking, and to which I said, well, maybe we can work something out with Metra for the post office employees to park there. I mean, that was the first thought. So he's interested in purchasing the doctor's building, and I have all the CoStar reports, so I gave him all the information on that. Of course, he said it's too high, and I said I would agree, but if you need me to get involved to try to help negotiate, I'd be glad to. I also told him that the Ray Day building is for sale, and I had all of the information on that, and I gave that to him as well. He is potentially interested in that, so he would develop everything. I gave him information on the CalSag Enterprise Zone. He said he would fully sprinkle this building, so I gave him the information from the fire chief. We could depreciate the system in the first year. He wanted some other, whatever he needed, I gave to him. Thanked him for coming out. He responded. He felt we had a good meeting. So I just wanted to let everybody know. I think this is potential possibility. We're moving in the right direction. And I was pretty impressed after talking to him and Superintendent Weiner. He seemed to have a pretty good knowledge of, I mean, I didn't understand the building things you were talking about with the building, but he seemed to have a pretty extensive background in this.
He strips the brick, and just do basically for the Honda buildings, you take it from the building wall.
That was the add-on. He's going to make that a new storefront.
then the parking lot next door is going to take that and make that parking affordable, so not an issue in the parking district.
And he owns all these pins now. He owns all of these. He's picked all of these up already. He just doesn't own the doctor's building. And he had some questions about sanitary sewer, so I got that information from Superintendent Sperry. So I'll keep you posted. I told him I'd meet with him whenever. I was encouraged. Which brings me to the next part of this conversation. Mr. Pappas is still interested in the nail school. So we potentially have a meeting next Tuesday. Don, you're available? Gary, I don't know if you're around. We're 10 o'clock Tuesday morning is what we're shooting for. That's to accommodate Mr. Pappas' schedule. I'm still waiting to get the confirmation from Ross. If that does not come to fruition with Mr. Pappas, this gentleman is interested in the nail school as well. And he would do the same type of facade on the front. So I reached out to Russ to set up the meeting with Mr. Pappas. We'll see where that goes. If it doesn't, I have Plan B in the background.
Karen, has he indicated what kind of businesses he's going to put in there?
No, they will be rentals.
Rentals,
He's
so
talked
whatever.
about food service establishments. He talked about one that could take a double, would have two of the storefronts. He talked about another food service establishment, so it sounds like what we would want in our TOD area. And he talked to me about another, if he could obtain, even rate a potentially Starbucks type coffee shop over there, which going through my archives today from one of my ICSCs, I found information on Starbucks, which I'm going to send him all the contact info. So that was encouraging.
I have a question. You mentioned potentially talking to Metro about having the post office employees park there. Have you and Joe gotten anywhere
No,
with
that's on
talking
my-
with Metro about having our own village employees
No,
park there?
that's on my to-do list.
Okay.
Okay, K&B is keeping me extremely busy. But anyway, that is on my to-do list. I've got to respond, and we have to get back to Metro. So that's the update on the Honda building, on these properties here, and the nail school. So also this week I received an email from the broker handling the property on Kedzie, just south of John's. It's bank-owned where the houses were demolished. He wanted to know would the village, actually he called me, and then he sent me a map. Would the village consider putting Sawyer through southbound? And then his map, it was from, I think, the county. It wasn't very clear. And I think he was talking about who owned 147th Place. So I reached out to Joe Sperry, got the Sidwell, sent it to him. So I don't know who his user is. He has not divulged it, but I've been working with him for the past year and a half, so stay tuned. Every once in a while, he'll say, I got somebody else, and he'll call me. So there's still some discussion, movement, and I actually received an email from him today thanking me for sending him the Sidwell. Yeah, a lot of economic development stuff tonight. Okay, so I know you're all going to want to talk about this, but we got to talk about it. And that's the parking lot. Okay? So, and I don't want to belabor the point, but after the last meeting where we had a lot of discussion about we couldn't apply for a variance, I did some research, quite a bit of research actually, but not regarding that. And I'm just wondering, I'm going to ask the attorney if there's still any way any of that could be rezoned. Because if we had to move the rain garden, or we had to move the parking lot 10 feet to the south, to not be on the VFW property, but I think I have a solution for that. And we could not, and we had to, we couldn't get the variance for the 15 feet. We would lose 1,250 square feet of the rain garden that would have to be relocated. To me, that would be a sin. We would have to dig up the north end. We'd have to probably pay to dig up 1,250 feet, the north end of the rain garden, and have it added to the south end of the rain garden. So, I don't think that's anything any of us want to do.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
The map that we had looked at 2 weeks ago was pretty tiny, and it was kind of difficult to read all the dimensions. Did that take into account, I couldn't tell from the edge of the gravel.
It went right up to the rain garden.
From the edge of the gravel, how much space is there before the mulch starts? Because the mulch is about 2 feet wide.
It went right up to the rain garden. So, I then reached out to Mark Miller in Blue Island because they had an iGig grant, and they entered into an agreement with Paul Revere's school because they did work on school. They used that funding to do a green infrastructure project on Paul Revere's school. No issues. I have a copy of I got a copy of the agreement in Blue Island between the school and the city of Blue Island. So I guess here are my questions, because keep in mind, this grant, these two grants, we've got over $200,000 out there. If we don't get this done by July, invoices submitted, it's gone, okay? It's gone. I don't think any of us want to see that. So we have to make a decision. I don't think we should tear up the rain garden. If we can enter into an agreement like this with the VFW, similar agreement like Blue Island did with Paul Revere's school, where we would have our part of our permeable parking lot on their property, and it outlines the responsibilities of each party. We also wanted to have, as Superintendent Weinert had alluded to before, ingress and egress with the VFW so that there are no issues. I think, and Mayor, you said you talked to the commander there and they were all for this?
I talked to him about what you asked me to talk to him about, was the striping, and he, of course, he said he would talk to the whole board over there, but why wouldn't he be okay with us striping the parking lot?
And even putting some permeable surface, because for them, I think it's a win-win. It's a mess out there now, and if we can get the striping done, it's going to benefit them too, because they will have a usable parking lot.
Is the permeable parking lot restricted to the gravel area, or is the permeable parking lot going beyond the gravel?
It's going to go on beyond the gravel.
And we're cutting up some of the asphalt.
Right.
Rather than, and I'm still in favor of the village entering into a partnership with the VFW for ingress and egress and that stuff, but to make it a little simpler, rather than the village encroaching its permeable pavers into the VFW property, why don't we just put the permeable pavers on village property, which is the gravel? I'm assuming all the gravel belongs to the village.
Because we then lose the BMPs.
What's a BMP?
Best management practices. We have to have some...
You're not letting me finish.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Rather than us encroaching to the north into the VFW property, what if we just continue our brick paver parking lot to the east and keep it on village property? Because the way I'm hearing it now, if the entire gravel surface belongs to the village, rather than us encroaching north and tearing up VFW asphalt, why don't we continue the asphalt pavers to the east and do it on village, and tear up village asphalt?
Okay, that would be a question for the engineers and to the design, because again, Antero has told me they are way over budget on what the village approved.
But what I don't understand, but the part that I don't understand, well, first of all, when we left here 2 weeks ago, you were going to go back to Antero and you were going to provide them with copies of a legal description or a platted survey or something so
I
that
didn't-
they can confirm, because we were not aware that this parking lot was gonna, they designed the parking lot so that it's encroaching into VFW property, and we were not aware of that till 2 weeks ago.
Well, part of it is this rain garden has gotten much larger, because that rain garden has now been in there 4 years.
Right, but again, rather than us encroaching on VFW property, I'm thinking it would be simpler if we stayed on our own property and moved the pavers to the east instead of to the north. We still will need to enter into an agreement with the VFW for ingress and egress and for striping, but I'm thinking that to keep the agreement more simplified, it would be better if we kept the brick pavers on village property.
Okay,
And
and
have
I
it go
would
to the
agree.
east instead of having it go to the north.
I would agree, however, I'm not an engineer, so I would have to ask them, based on the agreement that we have, especially with the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency, if that's going to make a difference, because it might be off the table, okay?
Why would it be off the table?
Because everything had to get approved. Everything had to get approved, and everything had to get approved.
Well, it's water under the bridge now, but I don't think anybody on this board saw the drawing before it went to the Illinois EPA for approval.
It was probably 4 years ago, Kathy. That's how long this has been
Well,
hanging out there.
the other issue is that if this parking lot was always designed to encroach on VFW property, I don't think anybody on the board knew that either.
Well, why don't I go back to the engineers, see if we can go, I like your idea, going to the east. If we can just do that, that saves us trying, with that whole issue with and not having to have,
Yes.
outline who's gonna do what with.
Exactly.
But we still have a problem then with the 15 feet between the parking stalls, where the aisle is. Now, do you want to start, if we can't get a variance, we're going to have to take out more of the rain garden. And
Cut
then-
down the parking spots.
We can't do that. The way this is, they've designed it so that the parking works and that it's one large parking lot striped.
Does that main aisle, that's to the north, on the north side of the parking lot, does that have to be a two-way aisle?
It's not a two-way, it's one-way.
It is a one-way aisle going east?
There's not enough room for two vehicles to pass there. And so everybody,
Because I thought I recalled when I looked at the drawing that aisle was wider than, what's the minimum?
that aisle looks like it,
21 feet.
It was 21 feet.
Wasn't it 21 feet, I think?
23 feet maybe?
Okay, if it's 23 feet and it only needs to be 18 feet, then there's your extra feet. Why can't we just shift everything north?
Because then you're back on VFW property.
Well, we're already on VFW property.
Well, you don't want to be on VFW property. You just said to me, let's try to move it east.
No. I'm not talking about the traffic pattern not being on VFW property. I'm talking about the paver bricks. I understand that Blue Island worked out a deal with the school, but in this particular instance, we're talking about putting our paver bricks on VFW property, which is going to complicate the agreement a little bit more because there's maintenance and yada, 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 okay?
Right.
I'm just thinking it's going to be easier if we keep all the bricks on village property
Right.
and we don't cut into the VFW property. We still need to stripe it.
Right,
We're still going to stripe it.
correct.
And we're still going to use it, just like the VFW is going to use our parking spaces. But
Correct.
if the aisle to the north, that's the eastbound aisle, is 23 feet, why can't we make it 20 feet so that we can gain the 3 feet on the south aisle? Why does that aisle need to be 23 feet? If the minimum width is 18, and we've got 15 on the south, and we've got 23 on the north, it makes sense to just shift the parking.
Well, the code says, what does the code say, Nick? Code says it has to be,
18 feet.
No, I thought you
No.
said 18 feet.
no. Wait, let me go back to
No, that's why we're
No,
arguing.
that's why we're having this discussion. We only have 15 feet on the south
Wait,
aisle
let me
that's westbound,
look,
but
let
we
me
need 18 feet.
look again at the code. I got it here.
And while I do that, let me clarify something.
I found it.
The village attorney does not determine whether a variance is allowable. That is done by the zoning board on the first determination and a recommendation to the village board. All I'm saying is based upon the ordinance, the village board, if the village is going to be the applicant, is going to be asking the zoning board to apply specific criteria, 1 to 9. 7 of those are not present in this case, and a couple of them are actually in open contradiction to the criteria used.
You explained it last time. It's not a variance, it'd be an exception, and the board would have to vote to ignore our variance codes and approve it. That was explained last time.
So the aisles have to be 18 feet.
Right. But currently, the drawing shows the aisle, the south aisle, which is westbound, is 15 feet. Why can't we shift everything north 3 feet? Then the aisle to the north, which is eastbound, will still be 20 feet, and the aisle on the south, which is westbound, will be the required 18 feet, and then you don't have to touch the rain garden.
I will ask that question to see if that would make sense with this. If this has to be re-engineered, we are back to square one, okay? I don't know, okay?
What exactly has to be re-engineered?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm trying to, and I like your idea about moving it east. I want this thing to get done before July. 'Cause
Karen,
we're running out of time.
We all do. We all would like it to be done. Because it'll just make a fabulous addition
Oh, it
to
will.
that end of the complex.
It
And
will.
even for the VFW, it would be a great benefit for the VFW as well. So we all are, I think, in agreement that we all want to get this done.
Okay, let me ask that question, and if that's a possibility,
Did you happen to talk to Joe or to the engineers to find out if they did have the correct lot lines?
Yeah, it's all correct. It's correct. I'm just trying to keep this process moving. That's
Okay.
why I did all this research with Blue Island, because
Okay.
I have nightmares about this,
Okay.
okay? So I will update everybody unless anybody has any, I like those ideas, Kathy. Why didn't you think of them 2 weeks ago? Were you thinking of them in the middle of the night too, like me, dreaming about this stuff?
I have a question. You're going to have to help me understand this whole concept here. I've been a gardener since the 70s, and moving the rain into the rain garden, I don't quite understand what the problem is there. Could you explain to me why that's a problem?
What?
I mean, what? You want to move the parking lot 3 feet north instead of 3 feet south. So what is the problem with moving it south? What is the issue with the rain garden?
Because if we moved it into the rain garden because of the BMPs, okay, there are certain BMPs that were approved. We have to meet
For the
those
rain garden.
BMPs for the rain garden. If we
Okay,
take
so-
any of it out, we have to add that to the
But
south.
Karen,
Isn't the rain garden bigger than what it is on the original design? Isn't it quite larger than what it was on
I
the original
thought that was
design?
the case. I thought that the rain.
I haven't
rain
gone out
garden-
there and I haven't measured it. I have not measured it. I
We
have
talked
not.
about it last meeting, that it was supposed to be 3,000 square feet, now it's 5,000 square feet. You said you
Well,
ran-
no.
Yeah, you stated that at the last
ran the,
meeting, so.
wheel thing.
So again, I'm confused why we can't relocate plants for 3 feet of concrete.
Well, we could relocate plants, but I don't think that we want to start ripping up the rain garden.
What part is ripped up? I said relocate.
Well, relocate.
Relocate is not ripping up.
Okay,
That is
well-
taking
Well,
your
I mean,
time and moving it.
it's gonna
so-
be, it would be a significant expense to have that
Right,
whole
have that
3
done.
feet of that whole north edge dug up and moved.
Well, the good part is we do have the beautification committee that does the garden walk here in Midlothian for the last 7 years. We know a lot about moving plants.
Right.
I'm sure I can get them to volunteer to relocate the plants.
Well, and one thought I
North.
had
I mean,
also,
south.
with regards to the Keystone parking lot is we have to have that green infrastructure on the south end there. Rather than seeding that, my thought was we could harvest some plants. We've got plenty of mature plants in the current rain garden. We can harvest a lot of plants out of there and move them. So there's potential that we could take a lot of those plants out of that north edge. Out of the north edge of this rain garden and move them over to the Keystone lot.
Well, let me see if we can shift the pavers without having this thing to be redesigned again, okay? Because if that has to happen, we don't have time. We don't
But
have,
if you do the relocation, you don't have to do a redesign.
no, I'm
Just have
talking about the
3 feet.
pavers. I'm talking, excuse me.
I know, but if you don't move it to the north and just go to the south of 3 feet, all you have to do is change the 15 to 18 on your design, and voila.
Voila, if we can,
Yeah.
if we can move the permeable pavers on village property to the east.
Well, the other question would be, ask the engineer if he had to redo, I mean, I don't know what goes into the engineering, if they gotta come out and take tests and drill through the concrete or drill through the asphalt and test to see what's underneath there so that they can put pavers there, but ask what the cost would be if we do ask him to redraw it, what the cost would be to the village to do that.
And then if it has to go back to Springfield, that's a whole other, we don't have time for that, okay? Because the approval processes in Springfield are significant. Okay, so I will see if we can move the permeable portion to the east. We then would have to have, I think the mayor then probably would be the best person to have the conversation with the VFW about having the ingress and egress reduced to, if we had to do that. But let's stay tuned. I'm going to try to make this as painless as possible because this process has been anything but painless. Unless anybody else has any comments.
So moving it 3 feet to the south is totally off the board?
No, it's not. I've got to do some more research.
Yeah.
I've got to do some more
So
research.
these would be the two options. Leave the brick design the way it is, and we are encroaching on the
And we have
VFW,
to
which
have
is
the
going to add
agreement.
an extra layer to our easement agreement with them. But shift all the parking spaces, and that shouldn't require approval from whoever, right? Can we shift those parking spaces?
It would not.
Can we shift the striping if we don't change the brick layout?
It's not shifting the striping. It's you want to shift the permeable pavers
No,
to
no.
the east.
Listen, two options. Leave the brick design as it is, not touching the brick. We're encroaching on the VFW. All we're doing is shifting the striping so that we don't have to touch the brick. We're not touching the edge of the rain garden. We're shifting the striping of the parking
north.
spaces to the
To the
north,
north.
3 feet to give us the required 18 feet on the south lane,
And then
which is
that
westbound
would
lane.
close up the in and out to the VFW parking lot too narrow. Right now, it's probably too narrow for two-way traffic.
I just asked the question, is that a two-way traffic lane? And I was told, no, it's one way.
The other one, the south one
So
is
the one by the rain garden is
it's
one
one
way.
way.
West.
The one by the building is two-way.
That's one.
Well,
No, that's what I said. Is the lane on the north a two-way lane or a one-way lane? And I was told it was one-way going east.
By the building, it's two ways. 'Cause that's-
Well, then we would have to that would have to be in our agreement with the VFW that would be one way. That was the question I asked at the very beginning of the
I
discussion.
thought you meant the south.
No, talking about the north. The north lane, which everybody mostly comes in, that's the
Okay, well,
parking.
our code says an aisle has to be 18 feet, okay? So if you wanted to have it both ways, 18 and 18 is 36, right? So typically, to have two lanes,
You can't have it be two-way traffic.
it's not wide enough. It's not wide enough as it is. They probably, George, but they drive,
Depending on how they park, it's either one way or two way if they park the right way, but
Sometimes it's no way, depending on how somebody
Yeah,
parks.
exactly.
Sometimes you can't get out, depending
Yeah.
on how some people park. So these, in my mind, these are the two scenario options to ask the engineer. We leave the brick pattern the way it is, which is encroaching on the VFW, which we have to get permission from the VFW and do an easement agreement.
Right.
And we shift the striping to the north so that we have our requisite 18 feet in the south lane, which is the westbound lane.
then the south lane would be 18, and we wouldn't need any kind of variance or exception or whatever.
And the bricks can stay the same. Or ask if we can redesign the brick layout so that it does not encroach into the VFW space, so that the bricks
Or to go to the
then
east.
are redesigned so that they go east.
Okay.
But we still have to shift the striping, we still have to shift the striping.
And we know, I think, we know that. We want it to be contiguous. That was the whole purpose, so that we finally have a useful parking lot. Because we all know, especially for those of us who were out there on that August night, it was anything but useful.
And the third option is that it goes south.
Right, the third option
Let's
still
not
is
forget
that, the third option is that it's still, we leave the striping layout the way it is, and we can leave the bricks the way it is. If we're allowed to reshape the bricks, that'd be lovely, so we're not encroaching on the VFW. But the third option, Carl is right, is that we would somehow go south.
Okay. Are we good?
I think so, those three things.
Okay. Can you read Jean's?
Yes, Jean?
Oh, Gene, sorry.
You know what, Helen's at home watching this, and this is her comment. Digging was impossible south of where the rain garden is. That is why it's not south of its location, because of the concrete and...
The debris that was
The
left.
debris, yeah.
that was there.
We know that.
So, this is a woman that spends her entire life working at the rain garden.
We know that the rain garden kept getting pushed further and further north
So,
because of the conditions
you know,
of the ground.
But
that's why the
it's
variance
south
isn't
that
allowable.
answers the question to Carl.
But is the rain garden bigger than what it was supposed to be?
I'd have to confirm that. I would have to confirm that, okay? But I think I have enough here where I'm gonna go back to the engineers again.
Excellent.
And let's see if we can get this thing done before we lose the money. Okay. What else do I have? Everybody, reminder, Keep Midlothian Beautiful meeting is at noon tomorrow. So please feel free to join us. And we're planning for the Great Midlothian Cleanup on April 27th. I actually registered the event on the dashboard. I ordered supplies from Keep America Beautiful. I'm hoping that they send everything I ordered, including banners. And the last thing I have, did you see my email about this, Gary? I sent it right this afternoon.
Yeah, and it didn't look familiar, so I went back through my old emails, and I don't have any emails from Reggie pushing anything. You said October, I went back to August, September, I didn't see anything.
Okay, so Reggie Greenwood sent me this invoice, and it's for $500, and we've paid it in the past. It's to be a member of the Chicago Southland Economic Development Corporation. Are you still, are we interested in continuing to support Reggie in the Chicago Southland Economic Development Corporation?
We did that last year, didn't we?
We did, and they have, I go to their meetings when I can. I especially like to go to their quarterly forums. Unfortunately, their forums have been conflicting with a number of my stormwater meetings, because I keep getting pulled into more task force and other groups that want to want our expertise. So is this okay if we approve this and process it for payment?
How much is it?
$500.
And there's budgeted money for economic development.
Yeah, or dues, actually. I think this would come out of dues. I mean, I reach out to Reggie often if I have a question. So,
I'm good with it.
okay.
I'm fine with it.
Okay, and just a funny, everybody remember John Mick, the engineer from Baxter and Woodman, who brought all the Australians here, and he stays in regular contact with me. When I got home from the Finance Committee meeting last night, I walked in, and we always have Chicago Tonight on Channel 11, and my husband had it on, and they had a mayoral forum. Carol Marine was the moderator, and guess who was in the audience? John Mick. I saw John Mick. So I emailed him and I said, did I just see you on Channel 11? And he said yes, and he sent me a picture I can show them of him and Carol Marine, and so we've had a number of emails back and forth today. So I just thought that was kind of funny. He was right there in the front row. And I've taken up entirely too much time again, but I had a lot of information to share with the board.
That's it?
That's it, I think.
Okay. Trustee Ivan.
Thank you, Mayor. The discussion of the third Millennium Associates So issue 3 is rescheduled for March, so I won't be discussing that at this time. Only really thing that I wanted to mention was the 5G cell phone internet boxes that they want to put, the FCC wants to put on our light poles and stuff like that. Sounds like a bunch of people are suing them with their change of rules. So it sounds like the deployment is going to be for 5G slowed down a lot.
Oh, that's good. Wait, who's suing who?
Villages, towns,
Are suing,
FCC.
oh,
because of
for
the-
allowing the cell phone companies or whoever.
The
to
pricing
provide-
structure, the turnaround time for approval, and I think that's it.
So, but in the meantime, the village here, we had gotten a request for a permit for somebody to come in and put in some of those 5Gs on our light poles.
Right, so that's something I'm thinking that we should be aware of if
Right.
like the court rules, hey, you can't do that.
Okay, so
Based on
Superintendent
the
Weiner,
time.
have we issued those permits yet?
No, we did not. I sent the permit requirements to the company that
Inquired?
applied, and not heard anything back.
Okay.
And there's a substantial amount of documentation. The only good thing about the state provisions were that they did require, or they did allow, I should say, municipalities to require an engineering report, to provide photographs. So there's a whole list of things that our application, because we designed it to require the maximum amount of documentation, expertise, and documents. So there's a lot of stuff that they're going to have to turn in.
Which may be impacted though by the lawsuit against the FCC.
Okay.
So,
All right, good.
Just
Well,
an
we will-
FYI.
Thank you. We'll have to definitely make sure we pay attention to that.
That's it for me.
Okay, so we're not going to discuss this? We're going to wait until March?
The third Midlothian stuff is in March, yes.
Okay.
That's it for me.
Yes, Mayor. Chief Hatwagner received a letter from the chief of Calumet Park for box alarm that they were on February 4th, thanking the fire department for their assistance. That was a call on I-57, a gunshot victim, so they did a nice job there. We have a new hire that the testing has been completed. His candidacy is being moved forward to the Fire and Police Commission, so it should be brought to the board sometime in the middle of March for approval if everything goes right. So that's moving along. Historical Society, we have, if everybody remembers, the pictures that were hung up in Keystone Cafe, the large 3x4 pictures. We have those at the Historical Society. I'm in the process of getting the frames refurbished and I'd like to hang 6 or 7 of them on that back wall.
Oh, that would be cool.
Very nice.
That would be very cool.
We're trying to get the frames to go with the color scheme of hair, because currently they're black. And I don't think that would go good, so. But once we do that, you know,
Jerry, pay no attention to him. Pay no attention to him.
so
Especially the black.
if the board has no problem, I'm going to move forward with getting the frames and
That would be
everything
cool.
done, so. And that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Trustee Cavity.
Thank you, Mayor. First, want to let everybody know that last week we received notice from Verizon that they have commenced construction at the end of January, and therefore the commencement date of the 10-year agreement between Verizon and the Village of Midlothian was February 1st. So the mayor executed that commencement agreement. I believe Verizon also subsequently commenced it and sent us a fully executed copy. So we are moving forward with Verizon. Wanted to bring up for just a quick mention, and we can discuss this at a later date. I've been giving a lot of thought to our sign out in front of the Village Hall. Can we kick around the idea of replacing that and getting a new, like, electric sign? Can we budget that for next year?
Sounds like a great idea.
Did somebody
You were
discuss that
reading my
last week when
mind.
I wasn't here?
I think we've been discussing it for like three years now.
I know, well, I mean, I don't think we
Court
were
Mouse has been
discussing
looking
it.
into it, and
Thank you. See, great minds.
there's a lot more to it than just replacing the sign. Actually, you know, I mean, we're not, but
Yeah, it would be nice if we had an electric sign up there.
I would just say that the code does not allow scrolling and flashing.
And the
Thank
code
you very
also
much.
says you can't have it hanging over the sidewalk, right?
That's right.
Our code doesn't say that, we recommend it to the sign committee, that the sign should not hang over the right of way, the public way.
And the bottom of the sign has to be 14 feet above the ground.
I promise, it won't flash, it won't blink.
Not like our sign in the front of the building, the display board.
Yes.
The front door.
Which looks like a spaceship landing.
Anything else?
Okay, yeah, I've got a lot, thank you. Superintendent Weinert and Attorney Valdez have been working on drafting the ordinances to adopt the 2018 International Mechanical Code and the 2018 Gas Fuel Code. A draft has been completed. They're going to hopefully review it this week and hopefully have a final draft to us no later than 4 o'clock on Monday so that we can approve it on next week's agenda. So Deputy Clerk Clackey, if you could please put those 2 items on the agenda for next week, I would appreciate it. With regards to the zoning map, you all have another copy of it in your packet today. We are going to adopt this as it is, as we are required to do so by the state of Illinois by the end of March. But we do need to move forward to start identifying those areas on this map and in town that potentially need some revision. Because we, have more work to do that'll keep us going till well after we're dead. We have contacted a gentleman who did some work for us last summer. His name is Michael Yukis. Some of you may remember him. He's a student. He's a veteran and a student at UIC, getting his degree in public policy and public administration, and he helped the building department out a little bit last summer. He has volunteered his services again with a fellow student to come and work with the building department and with Attorney Valdez to work on these, on the zoning map with us. And, this is right in their wheelhouse because it's part of, what they're getting their education in. So hopefully they'll be able to bring a lot of value to the process for us and will be able to help us get through that process sooner rather than later. So I'm hoping that, depending on what their schedules are, that we'll be able to really make some headway on this before the school year is out. I'm hoping, by, through March and April that we'll really be able to identify areas that we want to look at, see if we need to have changes made. But I still do need some assistance from all of you who were part of this process back in 2008 to help identify some areas on this map where there are errors where I may not realize there are errors, like what Jerry brought up a couple weeks ago, those 3 lots over along the toll road that are actually Park District property and not, on this map, I think they're noted as open space, but I think we might have incorrectly included them as residential lots. We might have changed the zoning on them. So that's all I want to say, is that I still do need everybody's assistance. If you could please take a look at your maps, and if you see anything that's questionable or you have a question about, please reach out to Nick or I, send us an email so that we can include it in our list of questions for the 2 UIC students who are going to be assisting us with this project.
And Trustee, if I could just clarify for the audience members who are interested in the zoning issues, there's 2 separate parts of the zoning code. There's the zoning amendments, the text amendments. As soon as the board passes them, we get them off to our codifiers. They change the zoning code. However, the map, that's a different story. The map, the village board does not get a new map for each change every time something is changed. So the map that you're working on has 2 parts. One part is getting all the changes since 2009 added to the map so it's updated, and then Trustee KB is also taking the initial initiative to review all the zoning within the village in addition to that.
Friday,
UIC reached out to me and asked if I would like to send a letter of recommendation for Mr. Yukis to be honored through their honors activities, and I'm going to agree to that.
Awesome. Carrie Pintar from Robinson Engineering is our certified floodplain manager. She has helped us with, all of our CRS activities. She's come to the village on Friday morning, and she's going to go through like a 2.5-hour CRS training with myself and Superintendent Weinert and the full-time, well, and some of the part-time staff here. So we're going to be doing that on Friday, and once that meeting is concluded, we will choose a date for our first CRS Town Hall meeting, which I'd like to schedule for either the last week in March, the last Thursday in March or the first Thursday in April. And once we choose a date, I will develop some type of a postcard type of a media, and we'll mail that out to all the households in town to invite them. So I'm going to reach out to the Park District. I don't know if we should do this like at Springfield School or if we should do it at Ray Day Lodge. I have no idea how many people would come to a CRS Town Hall meeting.
Why don't we just do it here?
We could do it here, but if we do have a lot of people who come, especially people who are in a flood zone.
I don't think
Or
we
we
will.
can collapse these tables and add more chairs.
Okay. So at any rate, we are moving forward with that. And I think I did mention to you at the last meeting I was at that we did receive our Terrace Recertification. That went through. Next things. Last week on the 19th, Regina Topi from ISO came to the village and she met with Superintendent Weinert, and they reviewed the 22-page questionnaire that the village was required to fill out for ISO for the Building Code Effectiveness Grading Schedule. That would be the acronyms of BCEGS. This ISO questionnaire is extremely important to the village because it has a direct impact on, you hear the different villages talk about their ISO rating for insurance purposes. Well, ISO is the organization that not only manages and oversees FEMA CRS program, they also manage the BCEGS program as well. And ISO rating is extremely important to every community because it has a direct effect on your insurance rates. So I'm not even sure if the village has ever filled out one of their surveys before, but we're doing so now, and it will be going forward and forever part of the building department policies and procedures because it's very important for the village to keep up a good ISO rating for our insurance. And Regina advised Nick that any municipality cannot be or should not be more than 2 cycles behind in adopting ordinances because that will have a significant drastic effect on your ISO rating. So the last adopted codes we adopted for IBC and IRC were 2012. We are in the process, as Superintendent Weinert is doing, in updating all of our ordinances, but it's extremely critical that we update the International Residential Code and International Building Code, that we adopt the 2018 codes no later than March 31st. So when she was here, she and Nick filled out the survey. It needs to be submitted by a particular date, but Regina said that she would hold our village submission until we have the opportunity to get these 2 ordinances adopted by the end of March. So I'm going to be working directly with Nick on getting all the information that he needs to provide to Attorney Valadez so that we can get those ordinances done and completed by the end of March. So that's a pretty critical project that we need to have done right away.
Kathy, were you saying that we're missing something to get our ISO rating reviewed?
Well, this ISO rating is a little bit different than the fire department ISO rating. I know that the fire department also has to do a similar ISO questionnaire. So this one is more directed towards the building department, not the fire department. But I don't think that the building department has always been completing this every year and going through this.
We don't know that they've ever done it.
But we are going to be doing it now. And also, what Regina also told Superintendent Weinert is that the positive effect of completing this ISO document every year and making sure that you keep up with all of the requirements in this particular ISO questionnaire is that it'll help improve our CRS rating. And it will also help the village in the event that there are some FEMA grants that the village can go after. It'll put us in a better position for obtaining FEMA grants, whatever those grants may be. So, that's an important thing there. Terrace Recertification. Got that. Okay, finally, the last thing. At the last meeting, we discussed the special use application for Bellarama Auto Group. At the time, we were told, Superintendent Reiner gave us the presentation and said that the zoning board was in favor of granting their special use, provided that Bellarama complied with the list of 12 or 15 items that they had outlined during the zoning hearing. The problem that we saw as a board when we talked about this last week was that the items that the zoning board required them to be in compliant with were the same items that the board asked them to be compliant with back in 2016, none of which were followed. And so in our last meeting, we had discussed this, and we decided we were going to table the vote as to whether or not we were going to agree with the zoning board's recommendation, because we wanted the owners of these two businesses to please start the cleanup effort to show us some good faith that they were going to actually comply with the village requirements before we gave them the special use. So superintendent went out, were these pictures from today, Nick?
This morning.
This morning. So superintendent went out and took some photos, and copies of the pictures are here on your desk. So it looks as though the auto sales lot, which is in the former Tasty Freeze property, looks like they did take out, some of the additional signage that they had in the window that was not allowable. And they did clean up the aisle area so that when you're driving in off of 147th Street, you can drive straight through to the alley in order to get out. And then emergency vehicles can get in and out of there as well. I can't tell on the photos if there's any, well, because they're all full of snow, if any of the cars have any stickers on them stating what the prices are, so we have no idea how the vehicles are being priced. I know at one point the vehicles were being priced significantly less than what is allowed by village ordinance. So I don't know if that's been changed. Some of these other photos are for the Bellarama repair shop, and looks like some of the trash and debris has been picked up, but not everything has been removed. There's still, garbage can overflowing with trash. I don't even see where the dumpster is. There's tires laying about, and then there's still that big, huge, giant plastic, whatever it is, container filled with, is that motor oil? Yeah.
The dumpster's on the other side.
Pardon me?
The dumpsters, they put a fence around the dumpster. There,
It's in the northeast corner.
northeast corner.
What is?
Yeah. Is that?
Oh, I see,
yeah.
okay, I see where the dumpster is now.
Oil.
Thank you.
Is that an approved used oil?
The fire chief said that it's okay to store oil in there, but I think we discussed at the time was that it wasn't supposed to be stored on the side of the building, from the street. It's supposed to be stored like a dumpster is, or in an enclosed area, versus visible from 147th Street.
And this is not new oil to be used in oil changes. Is this old oil that's supposed to be disposed of?
Right.
And so do you wait till it gets all the way filled and then you have somebody come and empty it?
Pump it out.
Pump it out? Okay.
The zoning board of appeals, when they met, specifically, Mr. Gillis said that they should have taken that and taken some kind of approved metal storage container for it instead of a plastic container. However, the owner went to the fire chief and spoke to him, and the fire chief was comfortable with that being used as oil. It was just that the village board was not comfortable with this location near the front side of the building.
It should be stored in the back somewhere, in an enclosure like the dumpster.
Right.
Okay, do we have any evidence or information from the owner of Bellarama that he installed the required is it RPG or RPZ?
Okay, the thing about,
valve and cleaned up any of the other stuff?
well, the thing is that according to our ordinance, I'm not supposed to issue any permits for work to be performed until they are granted special use.
Oh, okay.
So as far as putting in a backflow prevention on the incoming water line, I
Okay.
can't issue a pumping permit until special use is granted.
Okay,
And then part of the special use is then to comply with all the ordinances before issuing a business license.
okay. So what else is needed to be done in both of these locations before we can feel comfortable that we can issue a permit for the RPZ to be installed? And I don't recall any of the other work that would require a permit.
The board would have to approve the special use first.
I understand, that's why I'm asking the question. I don't recall what the other permittable
What's your recommendation?
work was.
The village board could, because the zoning board recommended with conditions and specifically found that within the ordinance that if those conditions are met, the special use can be withdrawn. So I think for the purpose of complying, the permits could be issued to comply with the zoning boards and the village board's requirements.
So what's your recommendation?
Well, right now, the auto sales place is in compliance with everything we're supposed to do. The mechanical shop still has not removed everything as far as the debris. And that's evidence in the back, there's still some kind of wrap. And then we can see the side of the building, which still has the oil container there and the garbage can and one food dumpster in the back. If Mr. Yasser Road, sitting right over there, is the owner of the mechanic shop, if he would come into compliance with your recommendations, then I see nothing wrong with allowing him to have his business, providing he continues to improve the property.
So as soon as he comes in compliance, then we'll take up a vote for the special use.
As you see the one here, with a tire rack in the front, wider sleeves and garbage cans in front of the building, I don't know, tires are fine, well, when the dumpster's going to be located at the back, why not move all this to the back of the building? What we want, so it's not on 147th Street, the debris is not also visible.
Sounds good.
Okay, then, I would recommend that we hold off on voting on this again for one more cycle until the owner of the property cleans up the property as requested by the superintendent, to show good faith that he is going to comply with all the village requirements. Okay, where's my agenda? And
You said that was the last thing.
can someone pass the mayor a mint?
Thank you, George.
Yes, that is my last item on the agenda, oh, unless I do have another question for somebody else down the road.
Always reserve the right to ask another
Yes.
question.
Thank you, Mayor.
Trustee Kilby.
Thank you, Mayor. Superintendent Sperry has recommended that we hire SSA LLC to remediate sidewalk trip hazards. They completed an audit of sidewalk hazards in the area from 143rd and Pulaski to 147th and Kedzie. They did find sidewalk trip hazards that were either classified as severe or major, and those trip hazards will be remediated under this when we contract with them. We're not replacing squares, we're actually sawing the squares to make them level, not trip hazards anymore. The amount recommended, the amount that we would like to authorize is $16,150. We have that money left in the budget for this year. So I'd like that, if anybody has any questions about that, but that's part of the policy that Attorney Valla has recommended, that we have to create a hierarchy of hazards, and we have to eventually get to survey all our sidewalks in the town.
Yes, the Illinois Supreme Court decided a case with regard to sidewalk liability to change the immunity status for all municipalities. I won't go into detail, but suffice to say, we now have to have a policy, and the policy just has to make a determination. In order for us to use our discretion to fix or not fix, we have to look at something, and the ludicrous nature of it is that if we do not look at a sidewalk and don't know that it's dangerous, we potentially have lost our immunity. But if we look at it and say, we're not going to fix that, now we have our immunity.
Immunity, you mean immunity from prosecution?
Tort immunity, in other words, the standard for suing a municipality over a broken sidewalk right now is not simple negligence.
So if we ignore it, we can't get sued, or we can get sued. But if we acknowledge it's broke, but we still don't fix it, we can't get sued.
We have to create
Did I say that right?
It's confusing.
Oh,
Saying
how I
that we've identified the issues and we will take care of it sometime.
Or we won't. We could actually say we're not going to. But what we can't do is
because
just
we've
not.
identified them, now that we've identified them, we don't have to fix it and we can't get sued. I mean, we can get sued, but we have tort immunity.
To maintain our immunity.
I gotta say, I was out there when they were doing it. Superintendent Sperry picked what he thought was one of the worst unevenness, and it was quite a bit, and I was amazed at the finished product. They shave off the high part to it gets to a acceptable legal
Angle or whatever. Okay.
So it took them some time. But
What
it was
about
really
some of
bad.
the sidewalks that have crumbled down to the gravel and are just nothing?
That would be
Then you
a
have to replace them.
Then we're gonna, and is that,
That's
That's
not
not in
included
here.
in there.
They're
They're
just
just
going to attack
side.
the trip hazards.
but isn't that considered a trip hazard if the sidewalk has crumbled away to nothing? How's that not considered a trip hazard?
Again,
I'm not an attorney.
the logic of the decision is that in order for a municipality to use its tort immunity, in other words, I made a judgment. You can't sue us because we made a judgment it was wrong. But the plaintiff before the court made an interesting argument in suing a town and said they didn't make any judgment at all. They just didn't do anything. And that prevailed. What we have now is a situation in which if we look at a sidewalk and it's broken, and we know about it, and it's counterintuitive, but we decide we're not going to fix it because either we don't have the money, because there's other ones that we have to fix before that, now we have our tort immunity because we judged that we're not going to fix that. But if we just ignore it and just don't have a plan and ignore all sidewalks, even though we didn't know one was broken, now we potentially lost our liability because we didn't exercise any judgment.
And attorneys and judges came up with this bright idea.
Yes, they did.
All righty then.
Well, no, we're not fixing the minor ones.
Okay, so,
You know.
I would recommend this.
Yes.
so this company, this SSA LLC is gonna come in and they're gonna fix them all?
Yes.
Not all.
And,
Now, fix.
well, no, fix the ones that are
Right.
on,
What
this report.
Yes.
they, as the experts in the field, have been told what is the legal limit for
okay.
gap, difference in elevation.
Rise, yeah.
Rise.
Right, okay. So this
Acceptable.
trip hazard overlay page that has all these little, these are all the sidewalk squares that have been
Right.
identified as the hazards.
Right.
And so, trip hazard overlay, and so they will work with Joe to fix the severe trip hazards and the major ones and not the minor ones?
No, they've identified through their audit what the major and severe ones are, and they will fix those.
Right, well,
In
there's
this
three
area.
here. There's minor, major, and severe.
They won't do minor.
Okay, so, but the major and severe will get fixed.
Right, and we're doing I'm sorry, 183, 300, and we're going to do 151. 151
And that's
squares.
only gonna cost $16,000?
Yes,
Okay. And it's gonna come out of this money that's already budgeted?
yeah, that's right.
And just to make you feel better about spending this money, this is what the court pretty much described as what every municipality should do to avoid losing its immunity. So this is what we need to do.
Got it.
So we're only doing one area right now?
They did not survey the whole town, that is correct. They surveyed the area that Superintendent Sperry identified as what he believed was the worst. But
Oh, so it's not in the whole village?
No, it's just from the
From Kedzie to
143rd and
Pulaski?
Pulaski and 147th and Kedzie. So I would imagine that, you know,
Okay.
we would survey a quadrant each year.
Right,
Okay.
and that's exactly what we're required to do. So in other words, as long as we are planning to implement the policy and we're pursuing the policy, now we get our immunity back then. So we don't have to do it all this year. We can do it systematically.
So may we put that on
Oh, yeah.
the agenda for next meeting? I had a nice meeting with Superintendent Sperry today, but not really, but, so he showed me the problems in the Public Works building, and they have three that we have to talk about. The wall is getting worse. I mean, there's no doubt about it. That wall's getting bowed out, and the support walls on either side, the cinder blocks are coming apart, literally. So I'm not.
I am with you 150% about this building. You and I are on the same page completely.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it is getting to be a major accident waiting to happen. Not only that, but the roof that's above this wall, mainly above this wall, is rusting out. And they have, where one of their up storage areas, they have a tarp to funnel the leak from the roof into a pail. In the bathroom, in the office, there is, you know, the type of tile that we have that's been, you know, inundated by water, just like what we've had.
With the garbage cans under it, catching water, yeah.
Yes, so it's been replaced 3 times, but honestly,
Trustee, are you starting to be on my side with this?
I'm on your side.
Wow. I'm so
And
happy.
the only problem is, Kristen is, you know, worried about this a little bit because she's been sick for the last month or month and a half, and she's would like us to make sure there's not any mold above the bathroom. And I think that's a reasonable recommendation since she's her problems are respiratory. So I
Should we
would like.
move her out of there and move her into this building?
I don't think there's any
I don't
less
think-
mold in this building.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I'm not being funny, but.
No, I
we've been,
would agree.
You know, I'm
But,
not making light of it, it's just, it does get to the point where, you know, we've been talking about this,
Right.
the mayor and I met with the architect again. They have given us a hard date of March 8th for the final report with all of the, according to them, part of the problem they've been having is all of the people that they had that did the, like, electricals and mechanicals and all of
Right.
that. It's taking time for them. Their report is done, but they're waiting for all of the,
Subcontractors.
all the subcontractors.
Right.
So they have not gotten that yet. So they assured the mayor and I think we were direct and to the point with what we needed. Mayor, would you agree?
It was clear that they already came to the conclusion that this place is not salvageable. So they were way ahead of themselves and started, providing other alternatives and solutions and prices for that. And Trustee Crowley had to reel them back in and said, we need hard numbers for what it's going to take to fix what we have now.
Right.
So I think he understood. I thought you were pretty clear last month.
So, I'm waiting for that. I told them the absolute die-hard date, and they said March 8th. So I will get that to the board as soon as I absolutely can. But I do think, and I think we touched about this a little bit yesterday at the Finance Committee meeting, we're going to have to make some really serious decisions with what we're going to do in the not distant future. with everything. With building a new police
We
department.
need to come up with a plan in like the next 6 to 12 months. We can't wait.
Oh,
any
we don't
longer.
even have that.
No,
Well, not for Public Works.
Not even, not.
not even for this.
I mean, this entire, I mean,
We built a big, nice pole barn over on Clear Boulevard for Public Works. I think Joe's watching, so.
Or the bubble, you sort of suggested the bubble, you know?
And then tear down that.
Right, well, let's see what we get, but I'm just relating that. The other thing we talked about was the sewer break in St. Louis, and it's a continuing problem, it isn't clear yet. They thought they had one, they thought they found the problem that, you know, the concrete was broken, so they fixed that part. And the next day, they tried to put something through each manhole on either side, didn't happen, still got an obstruction. And that's not the worst part. The worst part is if we have to think about this, there is a, I guess I use the word trunk line, to deliver, you know, the sewage from the Honda building on the, you know, on the northeast section going towards Kedzie, and that is the area that's deteriorating and breaking. So the major trunk line that the other little sewers feed into, that's the area that's breaking. The sewers are deteriorating drastically. We got to put another one on the list. Those sewers are terrible. And, you know, we're going to be spending a lot of money fixing sewers and not getting anywhere because, you know, I don't even want to see the bill for the St. Louis thing because this is, they have to pump the sewage around to another line, and oh man, it's going to be terrible. But you know, I think we talked to Engineer Nagel. I think we talked to Superintendent Sperry. That line is old. It's probably the oldest line we have in the village. It has a tremendous amount of sewage. The sewer
It
gets
goes from the Honda building
all the way to Kedzie. So
down up 247th. and
well,
down
it's
Kedzie.
sort of at an angle a little bit,
Okay.
you know. But, you know, it's just in about the same conditions when we replaced the water mains in, you know, 2010. It's just there. You can't, and if there is a way, if we can get a low interest loan, if we can get a grant, whatever, or if we have to put it in a bond, whatever it's got to be part of the discussion because that's something we can't put off.
Didn't Tom
very long.
mention low interest loans either from the county or the state of Illinois for some shovel-ready projects? Could we do it for the sewer repair?
If there is a capital plan that covers that.
But I
If there's a
think the
capital plan that covers that, we could push that in, put that in.
But I think the low-interest loan, which I believe is through the IEPA,
Right.
is for clean water. It's
Right.
for like water towers, water mains. I don't think it's for
Right,
sewer.
I don't think it would cover that. But we may be, you know, so Governor Pritzker talked about a capital plan today. I don't know what that's going to entail or what the possibilities are. We, you know, and Engineer Nagel's keeping track of that. Whatever, you know, capital or plans or grants, yes, we need it, but we need to put that in the same category, unfortunately, as the village hall, and we don't want to be in deep shit, as we say. Would the mayor care to enlighten us all on, you got the letter today from Superintendent Sperry, the memo about why the lights aren't installed on 147th. Can you explain what breakaways are, why they can't, apparently they
The
don't
new
match.
lights down here?
They don't match up to something? Can you explain that as an electrician?
So, well, that's not really electrical, but I could try to, so breakaways are designed so when a car hits it, the pole breaks away, so it
Okay.
does less damage on the vehicle and the
Okay.
drivers. They're just not sure whether these pedestrian lights require them, or whether the ones they have fit the bill, so they had to go back and ask the question again, are these suitable? And you got some person saying yes and some person saying no, so we're still,
And this was
already
for materials that we ordered that were approved already by the state or by the county or whoever.
No.
that the cut sheets didn't make it to the state until later on, and then once it took them time to look into them, and they originally said no, they're not the right style. They had to go back and get a different style. That's all through the contractor, not the village. Village had nothing to do with that other than picking the color.
Right.
So
You're off the hook on this one, Carl.
So it's, we're still going back and forth.
So it was the contractor that chose the fixture, or was it this, I don't remember where we got this grant
The
from, the
contractor
state?
has to choose a fixture, they have to send it through the state to get the approval, to get the okay. The state has to approve everything that goes on.
So the contractor picked an item that is not a breakaway, but we're not sure it needs to be a breakaway.
They believe they are. They threw in some terminology that I never heard before in my life.
Go beyond electrical. So, all right,
Okay.
stay tuned. So, I'll try to make this quick, but I would hope the board would join me in asking Attorney Valdez to draw up an ordinance to require that all nicotine products, smoking or vaping, would be, the minimum age to buy them would be 18. I asked you to look at the Surgeon General's report, and just to recap that nationwide, 20% of high school students are vaping. Nicotine is an extremely addictive chemical, as we know from smoking, and we have the same material in there in the vaping. So basically, in fact, vaping is the most popular product, Juul, which has 70% of the market. The one cartridge is equal to 5 cartons of cigarettes. So whoever would take that, if they wouldn't use discretion, they could definitely become more of a nicotine addict than it would be for cigarettes, which is hard to believe. We do know from research that nicotine has a terrible effect on young brains. It is very, especially with young brains, it's very harmful to their brain. The research, we have found chemicals in vaping, ultrafine particles that get in deep into the lungs. The flavoring in particular is a sort of a family of chemicals called benzene, which doesn't sound too good to me. And there is heavy metals in nicotine that are left over in the lungs, nickel, tin, and lead. So there hasn't been enough research on that. It doesn't sound very good that that's going to be a long-term health benefit there. So I think that what we can do is we can stop young people from just buying it just based on all the wonderful advertising geared to young people, and at least when they're a little older, hopefully making an informed decision for themselves whether they should get into vaping. I can tell them from people coming into my store, when they're vaping, they smell like heck. So maybe we could tell them that too, that they don't smell well at all, even with the stuff they put on to try to hide it. But I would like to ask the board if they feel that's a good idea.
Is there already a minimum age for selling cigarettes?
18.
Is it 18?
Yeah.
And do we have an ordinance about that places here in town can only sell if you're 18 or older?
Yes.
I think Oak Forest just passed an ordinance on the vaping, and wasn't it 21?
21.
Well, I think 21 would be better.
I do too.
I'd love to see if we can get 21 out of it, because 18 is still, maybe a person in high school who can distribute vaping products to their friends.
I spoke to 2 establishments that sell cigarettes and vaping products, and I said, what do you think about raising it to 18? And they said, go to 21. I'm like, oh boy.
Really?
They're not getting a lot of, that's not their main markets, so they said go to 21.
And
That's 2 out of how many in town that sell cigarettes and vape products.
Right. And Juul themselves, which has the biggest, 75% of the market, is owned by Altria, which Altria is a tobacco company, by the way. And by coincidence, they again try to tell their dealers not to sell to anyone under 21. So I think they're on board with it too. That eventually the biggest thing that could harm their market is they have a whole bunch of very young people vaping that would be a backlash against their product. So I think we're on the cutting edge of it. Oak Forest I'm glad to see Oak Forest do it, and I think there'll be a whole lot of other towns to do it. And if you think 21 is a great, I was originally going to ask for 21. If you think 21 is a great age, I would ask that we do that.
And trustee, we've spoken about this before, and there are some municipalities, because enforcing the vaping ordinances require officers to write tickets. And obviously, the fine for that amount should reflect the cost to the village, but they've also approached that repeat offenders, to just write a ticket to a high school kid. They come in, they pay the ticket, they go away. I can also draft into the ordinance provisions for a vaping class that would be required in order to avoid a higher fine, which is what they do in Park Ridge. So the fine is $100 if you just want to pay it, or you can get a $60 fine and attend a 1-hour class in which they teach you about the adverse effects of nicotine.
Who holds vaping classes?
They do them in high schools.
They do?
Yes.
Okay.
I would love it.
But are we good with vaping at 21 and cigarettes at 18?
Vaping, I think, is potentially more devastating than cigarettes, honestly.
It seems more harmful if the amount of nicotine in one cartridge, I mean, people will vape a whole cartridge.
Yes, yeah.
You know, and if that's the equivalent of 5 packs of cigarettes, it's like smoking 5 packs of cigarettes in a day.
You're not supposed to suck it down in 2 hours. You're supposed to make it last.
I understand that, but I don't know if they're doing that. That's the point, is that they might be going through a whole cartridge.
They got flavor, you know, this vaping.
Because they think they're not smoking.
Right, and this
I
has.
seem to smoke a lot more after I meet with you, so.
This has flavor. And remember, all these vaping products, or almost all of the vaping products, have flavors. So they all taste good. So, you know, I mean, they got this all knocked, and they got it all, and pretty much, not all the advertising, you know, a lot of it is for the cigarette users to switch to vaping, but most of it, especially Juul, which is 70% of the market at least, they're aiming it at young people. So,
So would this be just the nicotine stuff, or any type of non-nicotine vaping supplies?
Is there such a thing?
I don't think.
Yeah, you can keep lowering the dose to 0. That's the smoking cessation angle that they play.
Right.
I don't know, I don't do it, so.
I believe, of course, just at nicotine products. And I think I would probably stick with that. Just because.
We're still good with 18 for cigarettes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just because it's not
You ready to do
addictive. The other products.
You gotta do the other codes first.
And one last thing, is there a way, I think we tried to do this a long time ago, Gladys Schuler did it, but, you know, when a new business comes in town, can we give them a checklist of things that they have to do to be approved for a business? Building codes, fire codes, permits, licenses, you know, stickers, any stickers they have to get, so that when we give it to them, it makes it easy for the business to comply with the ordinances and codes that we have in place, rather than having to search in our codes and ordinances and et cetera, and we all know how easy that is. I mean, we have the guru of ordinances in front of us right here, but I think if we could somehow make a guidebook of, you know, here's what you got to look at, here's what you got to pay attention to, maybe some references to where you got to look. If you have questions, talk to the building department, instead of some people just going ahead and plowing through and just doing things without approval by the village, and then it gets worse from there. It's nice to double check all these things before
Isn't that what the business process or permit is all about? Isn't that the core essence of to get that?
The onus is on the business. the business has to go in these codes, business has to go in these ordinances and figure it out for themselves. I don't think they should have to. I think there should be some cheat sheet where they can sort of get some help besides writing it on their wrist or something. But, you know, I mean, overall, I think there should be something to say, here's what you have to do, here's where it is, here's the time periods. If you're doing this, this, and this, you might have special use. Things that businesses have run into trouble with. You know, we've seen that.
Well, I think it's gotten better, I think, over the course of the last year and a half. But we also have that new business application or the packet they get. And when they submit information to the building department, they pretty much go over everything A to Z.
Right. But fire, special use, you know, I mean, how long has that packet been in place?
It's been online since Chief Atwinter's been chief, that I know of.
Okay.
But,
Because, you know, we have people that...
but don't we have a sort of roadmap when the department heads get together to review plans on the business?
Site plan?
Yeah.
It'd be nice if they had a hint that they shouldn't do that, shouldn't put a bad thing in the plan before they did it, you know? It's always nice to catch it before they do it. They haven't spent a lot of money or time doing it, and, you know, we've had people that have had this, and they have done things that are not permitted. And then, you know, it's not nice when we have to go back or things that should be they should be something to think about. How much square foot do you have? Do you think you might have to worry about a sprinkler or, you know, a fire alarm or whatever it's going to be? And, you know, all these things that they should think about ahead of time before they create their business interior.
Well, I would just like to say, I think the personnel that we have in the building department now, and
Yeah.
it's a whole lot different than we did, and I'm not trying to make your head any bigger, Nick, but I think he's covering things that we haven't covered before he was here. And from my experience watching things go from each department, I think what you're saying is something that I don't think we need to do it, and I don't think other departments do it either. I mean, you do that by submitting a business application and then covering things that you need to cover based on the information you get from your...
So I'm back to a former time when we didn't have the good personnel and this.
I mean, Nick, you're here. I mean, do you think that we need to do something like that? That seems like it would be sort of hard to put on a department or a front office to make a packet to say, here, so let's cover A to Z.
Here's your cheat sheet.
When the only people that actually can do that would be our building superintendent or our building inspector. Because they're the ones that are gonna know the answers or have the means to look up the answers. If a business comes in, they need to be smart enough to ask questions, not just assume it's okay.
But businesses sometimes aren't smart enough to ask questions.
Yeah, and I think I'm
But
going...
it's their but they need to make it their business that they have to comply if they're gonna come into town. And a lot of people, unfortunately, will go ahead and sign a lease to put a business in
Well,
somewhere
yeah.
before they check with the
that's
municipality
exactly my
to see. Yeah, but we can't prohibit, how do you expect the building department or anybody else in the village to get in front of that? We don't know who's out there going into
No, I
your
understand.
plaza where you're at, or any other plaza in town, or any other business property in town to sign a lease or to buy a building to put a business in.
I think the problem more is that they are signing leases with a landlord and then coming to the village for a business license. I think the process, if you're coming straight here to get a business license, you have to tell Superintendent Weiner, I'm going to do this in this address, and then he gets to tell them, you can't do that there. I mean, that's really...
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Or you need a special use.
Or you need a special use.
Or variant, whatever. I mean,
Right.
that's
Right.
now up to him to decide.
Right.
The majority of the people who come in and open a business come to all the building departments or come in, and I spend a lot of time, same with the other staff, explaining what they need to do. Most people, 99% of them, realize that they have to come in and ask what they can or cannot do, need to do in order to open a business. Very seldom you find somebody who just moves in and takes over. I mean, it happens occasionally, and usually when that happens, it's somebody buys an existing business.
Right, like with
Okay,
Cheers.
So, or somebody, or a jeweler wants to come into town, he's gonna buy your business. He's gonna assume that everything is great, there's no problems. And then you find out later, when you have a business license, yeah, I do. So I'm a jewelry store, I have a jewelry license. No, it's given to Don, not to
Right,
Alan.
right.
That's where you run into problems.
Well-
That's usually what you run into. Most of the times, 99% of the time, people come in town, they know that they need to check with fire, or police, what they want to do, or they come into the front lobby, and I can't tell you how much time I spend out there answering questions about businesses or calls, or what I need to do. Can I put this business here? Is it zoned for this, that requires special use? And then they get a list from us,
Right.
part of the business license, we fill this out, and then she goes talk to the fire chief.
Okay.
So we usually give a problem, somebody tries to open something up, and then they have to back up and says, oh, by the way, you know, I remodeled the business, I need a license.
Right.
People won't do it.
Okay.
Most, 99% of businesses.
Well, sounds like we're on the right track then.
Anything else, trustee Kilby?
Nothing.
Trustee Crowley?
Thank you, Mayor. A couple things tonight. I'm going to be making a motion to replace the current village server at the cost not to exceed $19,300.07. We discussed it a couple of weeks ago, and I'd like to make that motion now.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Crowley.
Aye.
Trustee Caveney.
Aye.
Trustee Gillis.
Aye.
Trustee Ivan.
I'm proud to say aye.
Trustee Killy.
Aye.
Trustee Kreis.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Everybody's a jokester tonight. Okay, just a couple more things. A few months ago, I had mentioned at a committee meeting that Oak Forest had contacted Chief Delaney, looking to expand the microwave coverage to the northeast corner of their town, and they would like to know if it was possible to install a microwave link, support ground equipment, and 15 to 20 foot antenna on the water tower located behind Ricky Brockets. I brought this up, I wanted to bring it up again, and kind of not sure who to bring this to, and
Who wants to do this?
Oak Forest, they want to expand their coverage. So they're looking for an answer if that would be something that we would let them do, and if so, if there would be a contract and a fee, or what it would be. I just don't know who to direct it to, because I truly know nothing about antennas.
Start with Robinson? See what they know?
Start with that.
Send this to
Start with
Robinson.
trustee Cavaney, because she's the,
She's the antenna expert, that's why I'm looking at trustee. So, I just want to give them a contact person, because them talking to me is, I have to read it every time I say it.
Did they send you an email?
Yeah, they sent it to the chief forwarded it to me.
Okay, could you just send it to me? And
Yes.
I'll take a look at it and send it
when they
to,
say antenna, chief, what do you, or radar, what are they talking about?
Microwave.
Microwave.
Essentially just the antenna.
Those are, we looked in,
what does it look
We
like?
have one on our house, we put our own microwave up there, communicate with the government.
What does it look like? Is it a box? Does it look like a satellite dish?
Trustee, I think that would be the first step, would be for Oak Forest to present exactly what they want to do and describe the equipment they want to put on there so that we can give it to the village.
Because we have to let
engineer.
them know that Verizon is putting 9 antennas up there, and I didn't really pay that much attention to the drawings to know where they're going to go, what they're going to look like. So we would have to have Joe and Robinson Engineering involved in that conversation, so we would know what it's going to look like and where and how high it needs to be.
Yeah, I think they reached out to us because they're hoping, they're thinking that it might be useful to both of our 911 communications at some point if there's more consolidation that the state keeps talking about, so.
So is Oak Forest, do they not go to Kelcom like we do? Do they go somewhere else?
They do, yeah. They're large enough to dispatch themselves, but the state is talking that they're going to raise the residency requirement again for how many people have to be covered by a dispatch company.
So that means that then they'll be forced to consolidate into something.
If it happens and they go into bigger. Right now it's what, 24,000? 24? 25, yeah. So right now the state law requires you to have 25,000 people in dispatch.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
No.
Sure you can.
So
Of
you
course
keep
you
talking
can.
about the Verizon putting their antennas on top of the water tower.
Uh-huh.
I never signed the agreement with Nicor to do the work.
Right.
So
I have no
they're
idea.
not gonna have
Oh, no,
backup?
oh, no, they're gonna have it or else we're not gonna, they've just started doing, I don't know what's going on with that. But I told Bill that that agreement is ludicrous. We're not gonna let them come on our property and do work on our property and not take responsibility for causing any damage. We're not signing that.
Yeah.
So
And I
if,
believe that's the backup generator,
Yes.
gas-powered backup
Yes,
generator
so
power
they-
the antenna.
A
The
natural
original
gas-
proposal was
Yeah.
propane, I believe. and
the
the
original
village
was
required-
propane, and we said, no, you have to have natural gas. So they contracted Nicor to run a natural gas line in, and Nicor wants us to sign some silly document that does not hold them accountable if they cause any damage to anybody.
It's
And we
actually-
said no.
It was actually a form letter
Yeah.
that people who buy a new house
Uh-huh.
have.
It's a
line-
residential form
It's a
letter.
residential form that they
Yeah.
just sent us.
Yeah, so we said, we're not signing it, you need to change it, and Bill said, well, no, they won't, and we said, well, then Verizon, then you sign it. You sign a document to the village that says you're gonna take responsibility if Nicor.
Sorry, yes.
So, there you have it.
My turn.
Is there anything else?
I have one more thing,
Oh.
Jess. Next, I'd like to give kudos and thanks to the police department. Last week, Metro had an incident where they hit a rider, and it caused hundreds, if not more than 1,000 people that normally would not get off here to be stranded in Midlothian. Midlothian police came out, they opened the train station for all the people that were stranded, and they stayed around for about 3.5 hours directing traffic because it was a mess. So I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from people at the Metro train who say what a great job they did that day. So Chief, please send our thanks to the department. CPC update, the CPC will be voting, and I believe it will be passed on approving Klingons that we used to have them years ago for the windows that would say, in case of an emergency, please save my pets, and it would be able to check off how many pets you have to notify the police and or the fire department when there's an emergency in the home so that our pets will be safe. That we shall be looking to be distributing in the next couple of weeks. And one last update. A couple months ago, there was a meeting that we had regarding the website and updating the website. Everyone was asked to start thinking about plans for their departments. And I know we all kind of had the deer in headlight look because none of us had ever done any of that before. So Chief Delaney and I took on the task of starting with the police departments. We have given the first round of revisions to Trustee Ivan and Sharon in the front office, and they are working on putting it together for us. What I'm asking from the board is if everybody could talk to their departments and start getting ideas on what information you want to capture on the website, start putting that information together, and once we're done with the police department, we're going to go one by one until we get everything in the village updated on our website so that we have a functioning website the way everybody wants. So that is up and coming. It's been a tremendous experience to do this project. Really excited about it. Chief Delaney is thrilled too, right, Chief? Thank you.
And I'm more than willing to help anybody with their design issues for their page.
Yeah. Anyway,
Well, as the building department continues to update its ordinances, and we're gonna also, along with those ordinance changes, we're gonna also be updating all of our permit documents. we will need to be adding those, links to those on our page as well.
So that's why I'm kind of bringing this up now, is start with all the department heads and the trustees, start talking to their department heads, getting an idea, have it in your head, start writing down just a list of what you want on there. What we did is we took Karen's example of rip-off and duplicate from a lot of other places, looked at a lot of different police departments, saw what they had, talked to different agencies, found out what worked for them, and incorporated in some things that were specific to our village. So if we start putting a list together for each department, when we get to each department, who's everybody next we'll go to, and then we'll kind of go down the line so that, we can do it timely and hopefully get everything updated so that we have a good functioning website that everyone's been waiting for. Last, I do need, I told the mayor and clerk that I will need 5 minutes of executive session just to go over our compensation and employment, all of that.
Union negotiations.
Yeah, isn't that compensation?
Yes.
Sorry, I thought that was all the same thing.
Collective bargaining.
Collective bargaining, I apologize, collective bargaining.
Now you know.
Yeah, I think so.
What's the clock got to do?
Well, I was trying to get the same amount of time, but I realized that wasn't possible, so.
Mayor, do you have any questions for Trustee Crowley?
I reserve my right to ask further questions. Attorney Valdez.
We will have some options presented to the village board with regard to the outstanding fines that are owed from the meat market property, both to the contractor who did the demolition and the owner. So we'll come to you with what our options are now. So.
That's it. All I have under my agenda, I'm looking for a motion to approval to engage with Diliberto Real Estate Services for a cost not to exceed $19,000.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion?
I guess I had asked for copies of some deliverables that they did for other towns, and I didn't receive anything.
They had some from Oak Forest, and
Well,
yeah.
I didn't.
They don't. I mean, again, these are proprietary programs, or it's work they do. It's proprietary to them. It's like sharing, so everyone else can get it. And that it's what they sent me wasn't what they're going to do for us. What I sent you early on was a beginning stage of what they were going to do for us. Is 4 pages or something. I think that's more important than what they've done to other towns, because of course they're working with city-owned property, and that's not what you're going to do here. They're working with private owners, and they're going to make their money off the deals that they make with the private real estate, nothing through the village. This is just to create this marketing strategy, campaign, and brochure so that they can use that to reach out to their unique contacts across the country.
So it's going to be fit for us, it's going to be detailed.
Specifically detailed for us, our location, our demographics, our geographical location. So yeah, it's specific to us. And again, we went back and forth a number of times. We got them to agree to lower their top tier price down to $19,000. I think that's a steal to create this strategy.
My only question is, looking at our vacant assets outside of 148th and Kedzie, Cicero is pretty much developed, where we don't have a lot of real estate there that would fall under this
This isn't for
category.
vacant property, this is for any property in town that we can get redeveloped. There's a lot of property that's filled, that's for sale, that we can get a developer in there and do something special, unique, something that's going to be an attraction and a draw. We've talked a lot about, over the years, many years, about the train station, and that we have so many people that use our train station, and we have so many people that stop at our train station to let Midlothian riders off, and they keep going. But there's this, we're stuck in the mud in our downtown, and I realize that that's has other issues with the floodplain, and there were some zoning issues, but this isn't just vacant property. This is
I
a
was
marketing
just-
strategy to,
Yeah, I was going through their list here of specific properties for target. And
yes.
the first one says vacant assets, that's what I was
Right.
getting at. And then, you know, outside of Village Hall and train station, you know, when they talk about challenged areas, difficult frontages, parking issues, I mean, I'm trying to figure out what some of those are, or maybe.
Pretty much our whole downtown. They're gonna look at it as a whole, as a region, and find, connect us with, or they'll be connecting with their contacts throughout the country to bring in those developers and buyers and businesses that will be able to handle that and we'll be able to afford that. But they have to, you know, you have to sell the brokers and developers and dealers and everything on this, so. It starts with a plan, so we spent a lot of money over the years on plans. So.
Right, and he's supposed to
19,000 is
be
a drop in
also
budget.
having conversation with Karen relative to some of the economic development things that she's been touching on for the last several years, and all, you know, her contacts and so forth, and
Do what?
I said, are they gonna have conversation with Karen? I mean, I would hope that they would have conversation with Karen to get input from her.
Oh, they'll
Yeah.
come in and they'll meet with the board members and they'll give a presentation and they'll, yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it's all on. I mean, it's all hands on deck. It's not like,
Okay.
you know, they want to hear from everyone. They want to hear from elected officials and stakeholders in the community, and this is just the beginning stage.
Okay.
Well, I guess my concern is, and I did talk to, I did some, like I usually do, I made phone calls, I talked to Oak Forest, and they're not re-engaging them. They indicated there was a communication problem, and as I look at this, I guess, I said I thought it was, you know, the concept is good, but I don't think we should pay for anything unless they hit certain milestones, unless they deliver. And as I look at this, and I'm wondering what they're gonna do that's different than some of the other plans that we have, and I spend a lot of time working on these things, you know, and as to what Trustee Gillis said, I'm not sure that they're fully comprehending what is already going on in the village. They talk about Kedzie. Well, I've been working with a broker, and we know, and I think Superintendent Weiner, you're in court again tomorrow, aren't you? Yes, on Kedzie with the public aid building. And then they make the statement, Village Hall Corridor real estate, much of which is currently available but not attracting interest. Well, that's really not true. So I guess, from my perspective, well, I think
That's why you led the meeting with all the economic development stuff?
what,
You led the meeting with all the economic development stuff to prove that this isn't necessary?
No, I just was good. It was just a coincidence that I had, no, not at all. I had just had the meeting with, this gentleman on February 7th, and Mr. Hanley reached out to me, I believe, last Friday. So I'm just reporting to the board.
Is there any other discussion?
You know, it's just I'm a little gun shy because in our prior experience with trying to develop 147th and Cicero, we went through, I think, 5 developers that came to us with great plans, and it was supposed to be all done, and one developer who we paid quite a little bit more money than this, honestly, and nothing happened there either. And you know, and we're in a lot better economic situation, obviously, and I do like, you know, if Diliberto could pull off what they're talking about on their checklist, that's awesome. But not having any example of what they've done for any towns in general terms, I still am gun shy about it, and I don't think we should, you know, and I understand
They
that.
gave a list of all the pictures of all the developments they've done in all the towns.
Well, but not with municipal planning. I mean, we're talking about here, we're going to plan a municipal plan for a business.
It's a marketing strategy.
Yeah, market, you're right. But
Well,
We
a
don't have
marketing
it-
strategy is different than a municipal plan, though.
Well, we don't have any examples. You know, they've done developments. There's no doubt that they have done developments. They've done auctions. They were, when the creamery went up, belly up, they were the ones that sold it. You know, I don't doubt that, you know, they do some good things.
They've
but-
done work in Chicago. I mean, I was looking at some of the things they did in.
Right, and they do developments, but, you know, have they done municipal, it's really not just marketing, it's municipal planning. I mean, basically, they're sitting there and they're going, here, you know, these things will be, they're giving us a concept, and they're also trying to assemble properties or make possible that properties will be assembled. So they're really doing the function of more of a municipal planner, but we don't have any examples of what they've done. So not that they're not capable of doing it, but I really wish I had some sort of, I know for Oak Forest, they basically tried to sell the apartment mobile home complex that was next to it on an auction, and that hasn't closed yet, but that's what they worked on. And, you know, they may very well have good investors, which is one of the keys of a good developer, but not having any information about what they've done. Are we the first guinea pig, or, you know, I'd have to, I guess I'd have to vote no on this, because I don't think we have enough information on this at the present time.
So I've, since you brought this up, I've been doing a lot of research on it myself, and I've looked through a lot of different venues to see different kinds of agencies, and they all pretty much seem to me that they offer the same kind of principle. And I mean, to me, you know, yesterday at the Finance Committee, we were talking about generating new revenue and how that is something that we need to do. You know, I look around every week at the village, especially in the audience, and I see business owners who are asking for help, who are, you know, saying they're having a hard time making ends meet, who are wanting to, you know, if we don't start doing things to do that, I don't know how we keep moving forward with economic, you know, with these kinds of developments. You know, I'm with you in the sense that I'm nervous too, because, you know, to me, it's a lot of money. You know, I mean, we all know it, $19,000 is a lot of money, but if we don't start investing, we're going to wind up the same way we're looking at with things on the ceiling and water dripping down, and that worries me more than giving it the best effort we can to do the very best we can. So I'm kind of with you on both ends. Like, I mean, these are the kinds of things that big municipalities do to get big businesses and to spur on economic development. And I want that for this community. You know, we're all taxpayers, and I want all that.
I think we all want that.
Yeah, and I do. I mean, I agree. And I'm just, so to me, I'm thinking, is it, you know, in the scheme of this, is it compared to what I was reading some of the other companies charge, this is not in that ballpark. You know, this was, you know, obviously some of those we can't even come close to, the ones that work with Orland and the ones, you know, we just can't.
Yeah.
We can't. So, I mean, Mayor, if you feel that this is something that's going to really help our community and going to move us forward, I'll trust you.
Because I wasn't at the finance meeting tomorrow, has it been discussed where this money's coming from to pay for this?
Economic development. Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Ivan.
Aye.
Trustee Caveney.
Aye.
Trustee Crowley.
Aye.
Trustee Gillis.
Aye.
Trustee Killelea.
No.
Trustee Kreis.
Nay.
Motion carries.
Thank you all. That's all I have tonight. Clerk Masco.
I just have a few updates. I had sent the board an email reminder, just two highlights. One, a reminder about this Friday at 7 o'clock for our iPad training. That's for the department heads as well, those who are able to make it. And the board training for board docs will be on Thursday the 28th in this room at 7 o'clock. Marie and I spent about an hour and 15 minutes with our Board Docs representative on Monday, and we're in good shape. We're a little bit ahead of the ball, so things are moving.
Don't jinx it.
Okay, won't jinx it. And then lastly,
Oh, Donna, you ready for this?
don't worry, Don, we'll get to it.
As part of the board doc stuff, do you think we need to have like access to the power more directly in where we're sitting here? For those iPads, like, putting a hole in here so that we could run the cords through it?
I had thought that, but I have another plan for that, so
Oh, good.
yeah.
I'll be excited to hear about it.
Construction, low cost, low cost.
Okay.
They should be charged in long enough to last for meetings, and we'll have some portable power supplies. Yes, I know, depending on how long the meeting is.
Well, the mayor needs to stop asking so many questions.
He's really asking.
I
questions. No, I have another plan
I
for
have a
that,
charge
which I will
card.
talk to you about after the meeting.
Okay,
Very
thanks.
low cost plan for that.
Trustee Keller,
And
you
then-
had something for yourself?
Yeah,
Yes,
I
sir.
have a charge card for them, never mind.
Do you? We're gonna get you
I
one of
think
those,
we're all getting slapped up.
charging tablets,
Yes,
years down.
right.
Superintendent Weiner, did the email you sent today around, the building across the street, did that go to the whole board?
No.
It wasn't, okay. So,
Did
Superintendent Weiner had calculated the gallon loss of water related to the burst pipe in the building across the street, and I have asked Treasurer Britton to issue a bill tomorrow to the property owner, which I'm sure won't be paid right away, but, or at all potentially, but we will pursue it. It was for roughly 425,000 gallons of water,
Oh
which
my
is
God.
almost the entire capacity of our water tower, so it will be a sizable bill.
Oh, my God.
And that was all I have.
And it's going to lead us to rethink metering sprinkler system.
Yeah.
Systems.
The superintendent pointed out meters for 4-inch water lines are quite expensive, but so is 425,000 gallons of water. That is all I have.
Thank you, sir. At this time, I'm looking for a motion to go to closed session to discuss, I got it right.
Union negotiations.
Collective bargaining matters.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We are in closed session. There will be no further action following closed session.
So I'll send you the electronic version. There's 2 copies. You can
Oh,
have
that's
one.
right, okay.